When Invincible tells Atom Eve what Anissa did to him, what would her reaction be? We open up in what is supposed to be a peaceful, safe, domestic setting. Mark and Eve are in bed. Baby Tara is asleep right next to them, and Eve is looking for a little intimacy to reconnect. She leans over Mark, that it's been a while. But if you look at Mark's face, he is completely checked out. He is staring blankly at the ceiling, absolutely locked inside his own head. When Eve pushes just a little bit, trying to be playful and straddling him, Mark's buried trauma violently triggers. His fight or flight response takes over, and he forcefully shoves her away. His eyes are wide with absolute panic as he yells, "Eve, no! I can't!" The sudden violent outburst wakes up baby Tara, leaving Eve sitting there completely shocked, hurt, and terribly confused. The psychological toll this secret is taking on Mark isn't just hurting him, it is actively destroying his home life from the inside out. We jump to another night to see how bad this has gotten. Mark has resorted to sleeping alone on the couch. Eve comes in, looking incredibly sympathetic, and gently kisses a sleeping Mark on the lips. But instead of waking up normally, his trauma response goes absolutely haywire. He explodes awake in a blind panic, launching himself backward with so much force that he literally smashes through the wall and shatters the glass, just to get away from her touch. Eve is completely done. She is furious, demanding to know what the hell is wrong with him and asking if they are ever going to talk about this massive wall between them. But Mark is just hyperventilating, staring at her like a cornered animal completely trapped in his living nightmare. Now we have a tone shift. We see Mark in the bathroom. He is desperately trying to secretly flush the absolutely terrible inedible alien food that Oliver's bug wife, Haluma, made for them. He pushes a weird button on this high-tech space toilet, noting that it sounds like a blender. Eve looks at him, looks at the ruined bathroom, and drops a classic exasperated line. "I don't think I'll ever be able to look at you the same way again. If you ever look at me again, this is so embarrassing." It is a brief, funny, completely normal domestic moment. But look at Mark's face in the last panel. Even after a light-hearted comedic situation, he can't smile. He just slumps his shoulders, head down, enveloped in shadows, and retreats. He tells her he is going to take a shower for the rest of the day. The dark cloud is still suffocating him, and he just wants to wash the shame away. The lighting shifts to this beautiful warm sunset hitting the window. Mark and Eve share a deeply passionate, extended kiss. You can see Mark pulling her close, his hands gripping her waist, pulling her body against his. For these 4 panels, it genuinely looks like he is overcompensating, trying to push through the PTSD and attempting to force his brain to just feel love again. But the illusion completely shatters, he just can't do it. Right in the middle of the kiss, the trauma violently catches up to him. Mark's face contorts in absolute agony. He forcefully breaks the kiss, pushing her back against the glass. Tears are instantly streaming down his face, his teeth gritted in pure emotional pain. Eve is terrified, asking, "Mark, what is this? What's going on with you?" But Mark just slides down the wall, curling into himself, completely defeated. He just keeps repeating, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Eve's frustration vanishes instantly. She kneels down in the shadows, reaches out to his silhouette, and begs, "Mark, talk to me, please." And sitting on the floor, completely broken, looking completely small and vulnerable, Mark finally says the words he has been terrified to say. "Anissa, she forced herself on me. She did things to me." Eve is absolutely stunned. The word "what?" just hangs in the air as the reality of the situation hits her like a freight train. Mark sits there weeping openly, explaining the horrible timeline. He tells her that he had just gotten back, that they were broken up at the time, and Anissa tracked him down and attacked him. He tells her that he refused Anissa in the past, but this time she just wouldn't stop. All of Eve's previous anger from the bedroom and the couch instantly washes away, replaced by pure, unadulterated heartbreak. She immediately drops to the floor next to him, wrapping her arms securely around his shoulders. She tells him, "I'm so sorry, we can get through this together." But Mark is spiraling out of control and dives into the absolute darkest, most painful part of his psychology. He starts heavily victim blaming himself. He tells Eve that he told Anissa to stop, but he didn't fight back as hard as he could have. He tells her he should have tried to seriously hurt her to stop it, and he didn't. He is literally drowning in survivor's guilt. In a beautifully tragic 9-panel grid, we see him clutching his knees, asking himself the most horrifying question: did he hold back on purpose? He asks if some sick part of him actually wanted it to happen, because why else wouldn't he use all of his Viltrumite strength to destroy her? It is a horrifically dark, uncomfortably realistic portrayal of a trauma victim rationalizing their own assault, trying to find a reason why it happened. Just as Mark is sitting completely alone in the dark hallway, his head buried in his arms, consumed by his self-hatred, the tension spikes to 1,000,000. Out of nowhere, Eve screams his name from the other room. Mark flies through the bedroom doorway, his feet off the ground, his eyes wide with adrenaline. Eve is leaning over the crib in absolute terror, tears streaming down her face. "It's Tara! She's not breathing!" It is an insane whiplash. The universe literally won't give them a single second to process the trauma of his assault before throwing them into a terrifying life-or-death nightmare with their child. We get a massive time jump to let the dust settle. The terrifying medical crisis with Tara has passed, and we see Mark and Eve back in a grounded domestic routine. They are eating dinner together, Eve is putting the baby to sleep, and Mark is quietly doing the dishes. It feels calm, safe, and normal. But the conversation isn't over. They sit down on the couch, Mark is reading a datapad and Eve looks right at him, opening that heavy emotional door back up. She asks the million-dollar question, why do you blame yourself for what Anissa did? Mark looks down, the pain instantly returning to his eyes. He repeats his deepest, darkest fear from the hallway. I didn't fight back enough, I should have fought harder. And Eve instantly fires back, cutting right through his guilt. Bullshit. She looks Mark dead in the eyes and gives him the exact fierce validation he has been starving for. She tells him the idea that he wanted it is complete garbage. She takes a moment to apologize for walking away when he first told her, explaining she was just completely overwhelmed, still processing the shock, right before Tara stopped breathing. But she pulls him close, leaning her forehead against his chest, and makes one thing absolutely crystal clear to him. She tells him, and not one single thing was your fault. You can't blame yourself. We finally get to see the healing begin. After Eve fiercely tells him that it wasn't his fault, she wraps her arms around his neck and pulls him into a deep, comforting hug. She tells him, we'll work through this. I love you. And Mark, finally letting go of that toxic guilt, closes his eyes and says, I love you too. And then they kiss. But guys, look at the difference between this kiss and the one by the window earlier. This isn't forced. Mark isn't overcompensating or panicking. It is soft, safe, and genuine. They pull back and Eve takes his hand, interlocking their fingers. She looks at him with so much love and says, you're here. We're together. That's what matters. Everything else will work itself out. Mark starts to stumble over his words saying, I, but Eve just gently cuts him off. It's okay, and for the first time in what feels like an absolute eternity, Mark Grayson genuinely smiles. He looks at her and whispers, thank you. It is an incredibly beautiful, heavy moment, which is immediately ruined by a loud, obnoxious knock-knock at the door, bringing them right back to reality. But the most important step in Mark's recovery happens. We cut to later that night. Mark is taking off his superhero suit, casually venting to Eve about Alan the alien and the hunt for Thrag. He is just talking about normal, superhero work stuff. Eve is sitting on the bed in her robe. She asks him if he's ready for bed, and then drops a very gentle, testing line. I'm ready for something. Mark freezes. You can see the immediate apprehension in his eyes. The trauma is still there. It doesn't just vanish overnight. And Eve is absolutely incredible here. She doesn't push him. The second she sees him hesitate, she immediately backs off to protect his boundaries, saying, it's okay if you don't want to. I'm sorry But Mark cuts her off. He looks at her, his face completely serious, and he makes the conscious choice to take his life back. He tells her, no, I want to try. It is such a massive, brave step forward for his character. And this page gives us the absolute best, most wholesome ending we could possibly ask for. We see Mark and Eve fast asleep in bed together. Suddenly, from the other room, baby Tara starts screaming her head off. Eve is completely dead to the world, exhausted, but Mark wakes up. He quietly slips out of bed, letting Eve get her rest, and walks into the dark nursery. He pulls back the curtain to the crib, and the second Tara sees him, she completely stops crying, and Mark gives this huge, goofy, pure dad smile. He looks down at his daughter and says, oh man, somebody missed her daddy. Look at you stopping crying at the mere sight of me. I rock. After everything he has been through, the brutal beatings, the psychological torture, the suffocating guilt, we finally get to see Mark Grayson just being a happy, loving father. And that is where we are wrapping up this incredible issue. But before we officially end the video, I just want to take a quick serious note about the subject matter we covered today. The storyline between Mark and Anissa deals with very heavy, highly sensitive and mature themes. The creators of Invincible wrote this to be a realistic psychological nightmare, not a joke, and they portrayed Mark's survivor's guilt with incredible sincerity. Please remember that people in the real world deal with this kind of trauma every day, so let's keep the comment section respectful for anyone who might have gone through something similar. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know down in the comments what you thought of Eve's reaction. I'll catch you in the next one. And you can watch here when Anissa tries to do it again with Invincible.